Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, fam. What's good, brethrens?
Peace, people.
Everything is told mayo.
Everything's told. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we on. We up. You can't hear?
You can't hear yourself?
I can hear it just keep going in and out. It sounds like short.
It might be a connection.
Check your wire on the back end. Yeah. All right.
Good to go?
Good to go.
All right. So what's good, brothers?
It's all good, brother.
Hey, everything is well and good and loved.
Everything is well and good. Loved.
Everything is everything.
Let's make sure we put them on some shirts. If you don't mind, brother.
Yeah. Fourth principal gear coming soon.
Merch.
That merch.
Hashtag merch.
Yeah. Right.
All right. Hey, shalom to all the listeners, to our family, friends, newcomers. Thank you for joining us today on the Fourth Principle. But we're gonna get right into this week's topic.
Okay.
So last week we got into discussing suffering. Like how we land there. Talked about a lot of different elements when it comes to suffering. Did y'all brothers have anything else on that topic that came to you about it?
You don't have to suffer.
Right.
We did get to that point.
We got to
last
the point.
week. Yeah, we did get to that point last week.
I just reiterated. You don't have to.
Right. And if you're thinking about suffering, it's not real. You're making it up. You're making a whole lot of it up as you go along. Because you're just feeding off your emotional attachment to whatever it is that's making you suffer.
Somebody might say they need their emotions though.
Well, they choose. I mean, you do.
You do.
Emotions do. They teach us things.
Yeah. But you don't have to dwell with them. You need do nothing. You could sit down on a rock all day if that's what you want to do.
If that's what you wants to do.
You don't need to do anything.
All right.
And guaranteed you're going to be taken care of. It's simple.
Right on, brothers. So this week we're going to have a discussion about going or transitioning from suffering to initiation.
Right.
The path of the Christ being. But before we get into that, right, I want to know what you brothers think about the idea of the Christ being.
Elaborate a little bit more on it for me. I don't.
For me?
Yeah.
Okay,
Give me a little bit more.
No doubt. So when I say the Christ being, I want to know what you understand, how you conceptualize the idea of Christ. Is it a principle? Is it a person? Is it just an idea? Is it something nice to talk about? Does it point to something?
I would say it's all of the above.
I know you would.
It's all of it.
I was about to say the same thing.
All
It's
right.
all of it.
But if you don't mind, could you provide our audience some availability into the modality of your thoughts when we talk about the Christ being?
Okay.
Go.
Oh, are you looking at me?
Oh, well,
Yeah, let you go ahead and
All
start.
right. Okay. So how I understand the Christ, or the Christ being, there's only one being. There's only ever been one being. Being everything and all things. That one being, it's kind of hard to put into words, but I'll try my best. And remember, I'm not saying this for anybody to believe anything I say. I'm just sharing a perspective. That one being, or as we say, the one, it manifests from nothing at all. And that nothing cannot be conceptualized truly. It has no name. It has no form per se, which is a paradox. It's just the void. And from that void, it manifests the full potential of itself, which becomes what we say, the one, or the Christ. And that entity, being light, that we call the Christ, becomes everything. All the way down, creating dimensions, different ideas, concepts, realities, so on and so forth. Angelic beings, whatever that is to you. I just call them God sparks. And all the way down to what we consider the physical reality in the various myriads of whatever that is. And it fractalizes. Well, all these versions from the one light down to these sparks are all fractals of it. They're not separate from it, but they can become conscious to see themselves as separate, which comes to us. We're the one manifested in many forms with the higher conscious is asleep within us, but not truly sleep, just dormant, to allow us to play out what we call life. So what I mean by that is, like, the fall of man, or the concept of the fall of man, is that divine consciousness ensouling itself in a physical form, which is limited to have an experience to learn about itself. So any story you hear of the Christ, whatever that is, whether it be, Yahshua, Jesus, that's a concept. You have the Karest, which is the Ka and the rest in Egypt, which is the Ka is the soul, or is it the spirit?
I want to say it's the soul.
The soul, and the rest is resurrection, the resurrection of the soul. So I don't think the soul is dead. The soul is dormant in the sleep. And when you are going back to the concept of Jesus, Yahshua, he came to speak to those other aspects, or that which was awakened in the human being in the story. That which was awakened in him came to wake up others' portions of himself, itself. That's asleep in each and every one of us, having these experiences. Doesn't matter your race, your creed, your belief, any of that. We're all one being manifested as us, as individuals, which is Christ.
Does that link in any way to the principle of I am?
Yes. I mean, if you go into the Hinduism, you have the Brahman, which is the creator. Then you have the Atman, which is the aspect of the creator that's each one of us, that's playing this game with itself, asleep to the knowing of who and what it truly is.
Okay. Right on.
So you're saying it's almost like you having a dream.
Yes, they call it the Lila. I think the word is Lila or Lila, which is the play of forms. Meaning, we have a saying like, nothing is neither created nor destroyed. It changes energy. It changes form.
Right.
So if you understand that everything is the energy, or the concept of the Christ, which is the word that we put on that one energy, it's just continuously changing different forms, playing with itself, learning itself.
Right.
That's my perspective.
Got it.
Right. Sounds great. I agree or don't. I would say,
Say it how you say it.
as we, as we here on this physical plane, what we kind of have to understand is that other beings, if you may will, angels or however you want to explain it, they don't see us as physical. They see us as light beings just like they are. We have interpreted the physicality of it because we have to experience, or we want to experience. We don't need to. We want to experience, like you said, each other, but experiencing our own selves and how we handle certain confrontations or ideologies or whatever it is. We all have to experience it. Let's say someone that's overseas or in China somewhere, they may experience the same thing I experience, but it's totally different than how they respond to it. I may respond in a different way than they would, but they're still learning as I learn.
Right.
So, and when we're talking about the Christed being, we're talking about being the higher state of mind and the state of being that I understand that comes forth from the Creator. And like you said, the void, if you can even, when you even get to that, when you get to that and understand that, I mean, that there really, when I understood that really like put my mind blue. It just really just made me, I mean, I think I went on a thinking path for about 2-3 weeks on just that void. I'm like, oh, hold up. What you mean void? Atheism came up in me. Now I'm like, oh, bro, I'm like, are they wrong? Are they right? So those things made me think. But me being that spiritually connected to that which is, I can see why they say they don't believe in a God. I get it. It took me a couple of weeks though.
Is it modern atheism or ancient atheism?
Well,
It's two different concepts.
I would say modern.
Modern.
Now, ancient, we already know that goes to being one God or what have you. Similar. You can explain it to them.
Well, modern, I don't like speaking for the atheist because sometimes I don't really know what it is when they say I don't believe in, I guess they don't believe in a supreme being or whatever the case may be. They believe, are they the ones that believe in like we're a divine, we're an accidents that happen and we just came to be?
Big Bang Theory.
Some. It's different. It's not set. But I do know the original, at least what it said the original understanding of atheism is. It was for those who were monotheists, people call them atheists.
The people who believed in one deity.
One deity.
Right.
The atheists were those who were calling those people atheists were saying they don't believe in the gods. And the thing that came to my mind was just interesting because we're going to have to do it one day. I don't know if today's that day. Is actually on the fourth principle, redefining when we say what the creator is.
Right.
Because a lot of people, when they read holy text, not the creator, well, the creator and gods or gods. Mm-hmm. There are many gods.
Mm-hmm. Come on.
But there's only one source of all being. You can call that the creator. But then when we talk about creators, you're talking about beings that beings of light and shadow that manipulated something that was already there. And I can't take away from the big G concept and the little G concept.
Right.
A lot of people do when they get into linguistics.
Right.
But for the purposes of what we're talking about, we're not having a discussion about linguistics.
We're not.
Right.
Okay.
It's an understanding that there's an overall source of everything. And from that, the sparks that come from that light, you can call those gods.
So are you talking more about like a hierarchical structure?
You can look at it that way. You can look at it that way.
Okay,
and you won't be wrong.
So for the purpose of our audience,
Mm-hmm.
how are you framing this narrative.
What do you mean? Like what aspect of it? What I just said.
So like you said, well, we can look at it as a hierarchy,
Right.
right? From the overarching idea,
Okay.
which is the source of all.
Right.
From that are its fractals,
Yes.
right? Which we call gods,
Right.
beings of light,
Beings of light,
beings of shadow,
beings of shadow.
who all have the ability. Well, they co-create,
They co-create.
right? And they co-create, and as they co-create, we develop narrative.
Right. So I did a drawing. I channel drawing. I channel in images, right? And the image was, we talk about you read things about the monad, which is like a dot on a piece of paper.
Yes.
And that's the source of everything, the oneness. And from that divine monad, it's a expansive light, right? And it's almost like if you can take that light and just keep expanding it, and then every sparkle that you see coming, those sparks are still that light.
Right.
But because they're stretching further and further away from the core of it, it's like they get distorted.
Right.
So when we talk about gods, these are principles, ideas, concepts, or you could say beings that have consciousness and self-awareness. But the closer you are to the source, or you still remain conscious and aware that you are that one. But the further you move away, the distortions can cause you to forget that you are an aspect of that one. Hence, humans,
It,
or what we call humans.
it almost sounds like when you go get glasses.
Okay.
You know, like the whole purpose of wearing glasses is to bend the light, so that you recapture a pure image.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Because as your vision distorts
Right.
over time based on like however you treated your eyes or whatever. You understand what I'm saying? You're reacclimated to what we would call I'm gonna say a material sense of purity when looking at things.
Okay.
You know what I mean? That's kind of how I hear it, like when you're explaining it. Like the further away you get, it's distorted.
The understanding.
The understanding
becomes
is distorted.
Yes.
Put on some lenses or have your vision or your understanding
Right.
reoriented, aka going closer, right? Now you see clearly. Or you reorient to a more clearer setting.
Right.
Not clearer, more clear.
More clear. Right,
setting,
right.
excuse me.
Right. So, I said even beings of shadow or darkness, right? Now, these beings of shadow, I wouldn't even say they have an origin in. It's kind of hard to say when you're speaking from a certain perspective. You would need somebody of a shadow to speak from their own perspective. Does that make any sense?
100.
So only thing that I could speak from is going to be a very distorted understanding of that. And maybe, I like to look at Sifu because he's a little bit more balanced when it comes to like shadows and light. When he explains it to me, it's like, dang, it puts me back to like a couple weeks of thinking.
Right.
But the drawing that I have, it's showing that one light, and then you see it's like not crumbling, but the way I had to draw it, it looked like it's crumbling. And then as it's crumbling, you see what we consider as it descends, and I'm using descension as a direction, but it's no descending or ascending for really. It descends, you see it starts swirling into what we consider the yin yang symbol.
Right.
So these you have beings of the light that choose to stay that way, but they become separate, or the one becomes at that dimensionality, it becomes split in perception. Meaning you have what we consider a polarity, which is the fourth principle. And these shadows actually work, we would say against, but for the whole, it actually is a balance on that level to say, okay, I'm going to play this way and you play that way. And that way we could learn more about where we come from.
It's the counter spectrum action.
Right.
Right.
It's kind of like you always remind me of this a vampire in Brooklyn.
Oh yeah, yeah.
If every day is a sunny day, what's a sunny day?
yeah.
So you need to have rainy days to say, man, it's gloomy, it's this, it's that, it's whatever, to hope and pray for the sunny day. And when the sun comes, it might be too hot. You're like, man, I wish I had some rain so it could cool down a little bit. So these two things just keep playing. But again, as one starts learning or gains Christ consciousness, you see that, man, it's a beautiful rainy day.
Right.
Man, it's a beautiful sunny day.
Exactly.
It's no different.
Right. That goes.
I'm not saying I'm there, but I get to those moments. You know what I'm saying? And it's an awareness like, oh man, this is real.
Well, if and maybe we can share an example of something that you've seen in what different texts that people ascribe as being holy text.
Okay.
Right, where they see images of something like that, right? So maybe in the Bible when as is written, like when Jesus goes to the was it to the adulterous woman?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I don't believe that it really goes into a synoptic analysis about that person's background or previous conversations that they may have had or whatever the case may be, but correct me if I'm wrong, but the story basically ends with him telling her to get up, sin no more,
Sin.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You're fine,
Right.
right? He recognizes the completeness of being, right, as opposed to what everybody else might have saw.
Right. And even what everybody else saw, he challenged what they were projecting, like which was they were more purer than the woman.
Right.
Exactly.
So standing in my presumed purity, I have the right to judge her.
Right.
And they were trying to pass judgment on her.
Right.
He said, well, okay, he who sinned, he who has not sinned,
Let him
go ahead,
cast it.
cast the first stone.
Throw the first rock.
Go ahead.
He didn't do anything.
Right.
He just presented a question or a point, a statement, and they
And he
within
gave,
themselves
right.
some kind of real. Sorry, go ahead.
He gave them the opportunity to see the light within themselves or see that darkness within themselves.
Self-reflect.
Right. Exactly.
Which that's the whole, at least for me, that was the whole point of the story.
Okay.
Right, which if you go back into the moral code of that, right, that the act that they ascribed to this person, right, was very reprehensible, right? Like, hey, look, you have, if it's a crime to commit, you have committed the crime, right? And it's worthy of it. As far as how it's written, it'd be worthy of capital punishment,
Right.
right? But the way that the Christ, right, the way that he presented it, hey, look, if we're gonna do capital punishment this way, let's just do it
Across the board.
across the board.
Across the board.
Who's not worthy of capital punishment,
Oh my gosh.
right? And I don't recall a discourse between the.
It's a lot of things left out, like you said, because you're supposed to have 2 or 3 witnesses. You're supposed to have this. So people get entangled on, well, this story is it true? Is it not true? What difference does it make? What's the message that you get from the story?
Right.
Because you could read and read and read, and you create all of these pictures in your mind, these images. We wear garments. This is our rendition of something that it's more real for us now than it is reading the book.
Right.
So what the matter is like, what are you getting from it that you're applying for your soul's development moving forward?
And that's that question, right? Say that question again, right? What are you getting from it
For
that
your
you're
soul.
applying for your soul's development?
Okay.
That's what I'm hoping we can get into today when we talk about from suffering to initiation, the path of the Christ being.
Right.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, what are you gathering from the details that surround your experience
Right.
that you can apply appropriately, whatever that means to you? Right? I'm not going to put a label on appropriate because everybody has a different understanding about what's appropriate to them.
Absolutely.
right? But what are you gathering from those details that is developing your soul? Go ahead, Mike.
The ends justify the means. Listening to your story, listening to what you were saying, the adulterous woman was only adulterous compared to others. Correct?
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Who presumably may not be adulterous physically.
Okay, we can say that.
Presumably.
We can say that. But
Conjecture. Yeah. I got you.
That's why I say presumably.
someone decides what's adulterous and what's not. We've all known someone that was a little more promiscuous than the other and thought that they were doing correct. By where you're going with the conversation, the adulterous woman needed to be adulterous to meet that point in her
Come on.
Her journey.
development,
Right.
to where the Christ told her, okay, you done passed that point, sin no more. You know, you finish with that because you're here. Now, how we look at that in a physical, if we look at her adulterous behavior as shadow behavior, light is the source of all shadows.
Yes.
So what he realized was she was a reflection of him,
Come on.
just at the opposite end. But for lack of a better statement, she came to the light. So now it's no need to, deal with the extras of what you was talking about with the capital punishment. Now this is where he's applying the light onto the others who are trying to cast shadow,
Right.
not realizing that it's the light that's responsible for the shadow. It's like if you're without sin, you cast the first stone. Everybody has to have some kind of experience to get to that development. Now the way the way it was taught to me, we call it the Sahu, or some call it your higher self.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, so the plants, the seed is the lower self. It deals in the ground. You actually have to push it past the level of the crust. But once you push it past the level of what we know of earth, then it can start to develop. The end of its development, once you look at a seed, you're not going to see the flower. You don't even know the flower really exists, but the flower is there. But it's at the end of the development of that plant. It goes through stages of cotyledon leaves, the first two leaves that come out. That's kind of boring, with the first two development. Then the stem comes out of there, and then there's stages to a plant, and then boom, you see this pretty flower.
Right.
That flower only blooms for a while before it withers. It might produce a fruit, or it might produce a seed, which is the fruit. Then it falls back and does it cycle over again. Well, it falls to the ground and it goes through another development. So it keeps happening. It's not something that's gonna stop. But the seed is in the shadow place in the beginning of its development.
Right.
And
It's in the darkness.
if I can, I want to read something on that it's funny. Not funny, but I appreciate what you're sharing, because this is how I understand what you're talking about. And what I have is that you talked about different stages that are demonstrated to the consciousness of a person, right? And I like the analogy that you use. What I got from that is that there are possibilities that should come to light for every person. Where there's a deepening in that person's being through the trust in the spiritual worlds, which I would call that the void. and to tune his soul in such a way that he receives out of the spiritual worlds helping forces which flow to him, which produce equilibrium.
That sounds like some Steiner.
Right. Balance.
Which is right.
Balance.
So those different stages, right, are possibilities
Right.
that illuminate within the person,
Right.
right, which essentially pour into the soul development.
Right.
Right.
Christ in the wilderness was back at his lowest point. That was his shadow point.
Right.
So when we see him being tempted by so-called Satan, he was facing himself or his shadow self. So where your normal society at the time, a great population was already looking at him as the Messiah.
Yeah.
But on his personal journey, he had to face his shadow self,
Which everybody does.
which everybody does.
Right.
So everybody's the outside society is looking at him as he's at his high point. Inside of himself, he's at his lowest point. He's being tempted. Go ahead and jump. You know what I'm saying? He's going through all of these inner demons, so to speak, but the outside peripheral. And we see this a lot with our televangelists, our pastors,
Cult leaders.
cult leaders, everybody. Everybody. You're people lie in wait for the so-called enlightened one to fall. I know of, and I won't say his name, but I know of a very well-known local pastor who was seen at a bar having a beer.
Right.
And it was like the bottom fell out because the
Right.
man wanted to have a beer.
Right. Come on.
I don't even consider that a low point. I think he could have been doing a lot worse
Sure could have.
as a pastor.
Right.
In the majority, when talking to people, it might have been his congregation that had him in the bar thinking he needed a beer. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
I mean-
Right.
But my point of saying that is society will see you at your highest the way that they're viewing it.
Right.
But your inner turmoil of what you're working with, because you're trying to actually develop yourself,
Right.
you have to get back to a low point.
Right.
You're not gonna, you it's gonna be a cycle. You're gonna keep constantly going back and forth through, and does that make it? It can't just be the higher self, because, like I said previously, light is the source of the shadows. So what's going to happen is you're going to constantly see your own shadow and re-question your development and start over.
Right.
Unless you become arrogant and pompous about who you are. And then, we all have met the holier than thou. I got it and you don't.
Right.
I'm here and you not. That's why Christ was saying, ye without sin cast the first stone.
Right.
That went for himself also. Which is why he was able to tell her, okay, you good. Just don't do this no more.
Right.
You passed that point.
Right.
Now you here.
Which is interesting. I want to really touch on that. Not from a biblical stance, right? But I'm gonna take that same story so I can bring it into the spirituality of certain things, right? So when let's say this young lady, she was caught in this adultery or whatever that is. Let's take Jesus out of the picture,
All right.
but we're gonna leave the Christ in the picture.
Okay.
So what I got from this story that we're talking about right now, just got it, is that she was dealing with her lower self
Okay.
or the red chakra. I deal with a lot of chakra systems. So the red chakra, which generates a lot of sexuality things. So she might been dwelling too much in that
Right.
to not raise her vibration up to come into the Christ consciousness, or the Christ that being that she should be. So something comes in, or the Christ comes in and speaks to her mind and say, repent
Or turn.
or turn.
Right.
Change your mind thinking.
It's change the way you think. Yeah.
Change the way you think and go about your day. You'll be great.
Simple.
You'll be fine.
Simple as that.
You know. I mean,
Right.
I know I'm just coming off of,
No,
because
that-
some people may look at this and they may not be into the Bible a lot. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
right,
Absolutely.
right, right.
So I'm gonna give them something that they can relate to, like, as in chakras and stuff like that. So they can get it, understand what we're talking about. Because I want to bring all of us into that one fold.
Right, right.
I think one thing that I would add is that one thing that's common to every soul on this earth is that I think the path of initiation, there belongs to it a certain preparatory work that happens before you get there.
Right.
So, and we call that life experience, right? That might be relationships, right? Because we talked about this last week. You got relationships with everything. People, finances,
Persons, places, and things.
all of that, right? And no matter what you ascribe to outwardly, inwardly, right, there's a certain preparation that's unique to everybody. Everybody goes through that.
Right.
Whether they now in that you either conscious of it, right, or you may not be.
Right.
Just kind of all depends on, like, where you're at,
Right.
where your space of awareness lies.
Right. See, what I find interesting is, biblically, the Most High doesn't use you unless you're in your shadow self. Everybody that was very, very influential in the biblical story were in their shadow self and reached a higher consciousness. And that higher consciousness that they reached was documented. John, Moshe,
Yep.
everybody was Noah. They were in their lowest, even Adam. They all had to develop to be to get to a certain point. But when they were approached in their shadow self. Because if that is the light, the reflective side is going to be shadow. That's the balance of it, and that's the initiation. They would go through initiations, like you said, the to go from suffering, and there always is some suffering.
Hence, like, there's always a very detailed account theologically about the fall.
Right.
The conversation, as far as I can recall, doesn't really is not really induced with the higher state of consciousness.
Right.
It's about you started here.
Right.
You fail.
Right.
You did all these, and then I think that there might be, because of that, I think there might be a hypersensitive awareness that kind of stays there.
Yes.
You fail, you're cursed, or this is bad, and that's evil.
Right.
God didn't want you to eat the fruit.
And different things like that.
right.
You know what I mean? And not necessarily, maybe some people do, right? But it's been far in between that I've seen, a conversation kind of start off in the elevated.
You were once one with the Creator.
You were once one with the Creator.
Right.
The thing about that motif,
Right.
Right.
in the void, you were there.
Right.
Right.
That statement alone says that now you're in your shadow self or your low place. So
So what? As we start unpacking this discussion, right? What's something that you can share with the listeners that was unique to your experience? During the path of initiation for you.
I'm still on the path.
Yeah. I was about to say,
Yeah.
I think we're all on
We're
the
all
path.
still on the path.
Still there. Still trying to vibrate at that potential that we have.
Okay.
But just to start, start off, you could take the whole life journey, even, from birth to where you at right now.
Right.
And, I think all of us will probably continue on doing that, even if we have to continue to come back
Right. It's a
and
cycle.
redo it. And,
It's a cycle.
and as you try to get it,
Right.
I was listening to something the other day. It was like, continue on your path.
Right.
And the first time you say, I got it, you don't got it.
Right.
And then you stop trying to get to that initiation. You think you there. But the thing is, you start to go back down slowly. And they say when you come back down slowly, the effects is like double. So now you got to try to get back to
You can
your
see.
extension.
Right.
Your extension.
Right.
Right? So that's what I can just tell the people. But like I say, we're still on that path.
It's a paradox because in the experience, like, and through my experiences, I always get to a place of like, okay, it's kind of hard. It's like a place of, you're like, well, it's things that don't come into my purview unless somebody brings it into my purview.
Right.
And then you start questioning, well, am I too disconnected from all the stuff that's going on in the world and the things that's going on, right?
Right.
And it's also, it's one thing that Malak and I always say is like, man, my mind, my soul knows, but my mind's trying to catch up. It's concepts that come, but it's like it's there, but it's not there. And one of those concepts is there's nowhere to go. You're already there.
Right.
Consciousness is not a level thing based on what I feel I know. It's not a level thing like, let's talk about a relationship. Oh, it's my girlfriend. And you do boyfriend, girlfriend things. And then now it's a definitive, oh, I'm a fiance. And the relationship shifts to you're doing fiance things.
Right.
And then it's not, and then we're married. And then the relationship shifts to where it's a definitive line mentally. That's not how consciousness works.
Right.
Consciousness works where you do the things that exercises, routines, and prayer, affirmation, whatever these, so many things that people do.
Right.
Meditation, sound bowls, music, dance, whatever.
Right.
And as you moving or as you become, your consciousness expands. It's more of an awareness that, oh wow, a situation arises and you realize that if this would have happened to me like last week, a year ago, 2 years ago, I would have reacted way different. It's a calmness about you. It's just something that's just different that you realize. And then when you start thinking about it, it's like, oh, I haven't done this in like 5 years. Man, it's been 5 years since So it's not a thing that you're drawing these lines and like a football field and you get into the 5-yard line, the 3-yard line, and then next thing you know, touchdown. I'm enlightened.
Right.
You're already there because you never left the Christ.
Right.
You have just created a realm within yourself,
Right.
to have experiences and move, expand your conscious back to where you already are.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Yes, I agree with that.
agree.
But comma, as you say, I agree with that. But because it's a cycle, is why you return back. Now, I do say it's levels, but you're actually going to. It's like completion is 361 degrees, not 360 degrees. That's your starting point.
You got to tilt the scale.
You're coming back again, and then you're going to have experiences. Because remember, if you're going in a cycle, you're at that high point. once you reach the high point, okay, I'll give a perfect example. I guarantee you, everybody in this room has had a different school of thought before where you're settled at right now.
Right.
Can you remember when you thought you had it at that other school of thought? And that would have been the end. You're thinking like, this is what's for me.
Right.
And then something happens.
Right.
And then you're not falling. You got to start over. You're not the top or the starting point immediately becomes the bottom now.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to work your way back up.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And then you get to that top of that point. That's learning.
I read that somewhere.
That's
Well,
development.
It broke. I think we talked about it a
We
long
talked
time
about-
ago. It's
well,
like every time you get to that one point, you go through these phases,
Right.
and then next thing you know, you're at the bottom of a new phase.
Phase.
Right,
Yeah.
Exactly.
right,
Yeah.
right.
It's like when I think we talked about like going through the door.
Mm-hmm.
Each door you go through is like a whole nother journey.
Right.
You didn't open this door like, hold up, now I gotta start back. It almost remind me, you go into like martial arts. So,
Right.
you studying, but then when you go to another school of thought
Right.
that you want to learn, you right back at the bottom.
Well, for those of you who know how the number thing, it's like when you get to the number 10.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
really a 1 going through a 0.
Right.
And now you got the 10, so-called, but it's presenting an 11,
Right.
which is
Right.
a whole nother phases of ones.
Starting
So you just keep
Exactly.
getting to the 0 point, and then you start a new phases of ones.
Right.
Or it
Exactly.
might be 2s or 3s,
Right.
but they all are just ones, having different shapes and forms to create bigger and greater numbers.
Right.
Gotcha.
So when we look back at this story that Malak used as an example, we see that
Yeah.
the Christ was back at his starting point a couple of times during this story, but
Still on the path.
we don't. Right. I mean, the crucifixion made him question his whole entire existence,
Right.
which it would for a human. You know, for those who believe that it was an actual human man, for the sake of that story, for those because I know it's some out there that he not a real person. That's not the point of what I'm saying.
Gotcha.
The point of what I'm saying is the crucifixion made him question everything that he had put. It's about my father. It's my nails hit him. You forsaken me, dude. You done left me up here.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So that's like,
Yeah. Right.
and after the burial, I think, which was a symbolic representation.
Talking about the veil?
No,
No, the burial.
the burial.
When they put him in the tomb.
When they put him in the tomb.
Sepulcher.
Gotcha.
Now that is the ultimate
Right.
Christ.
Right.
And then after that, he ascended and left messages with his followers that, because the whole time, this whole story, the whole time he was telling them, look, y'all can be like me. Y'all keep
Right.
asking me about
Right.
asking me about this. Let me Peter, let me show you something. Come on out here on the water and stand.
Right. Exactly.
Right. So Peter was at his highest point at that moment, but then he doubted. Then he went back down on his cycle again. Right. So when we look at the stories, we keep seeing the stories of the development of how we were presented of light and dark, or light and shadows, or lower selves and higher selves, but it wasn't just him that was the high point. The way it's viewed today is, okay, I want to be Christ-like.
Right.
Okay,
Dude.
well, in saying that, you should know that
You have
you're
to
going to
take
go
on
through
that.
some shadow.
Right.
Right.
And you have to accept that shadow and put it away and don't be that. And constantly,
See what you talking about?
constant elevation. Ain't that what they say? Constant
Yeah.
elevation.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say something. What you're
Constant
talking about
elevation
is
causes expansion.
Right.
we're
Well,
we're
it's something.
we're taking a position that is opposite of a widespread of philosophy, which would consider themselves enlightened.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
As opposed to, when you capture this idea, right? You grab a realization that, like, yo, man, like I'm still working. I'm still working through the journey.
Right.
Okay. A thought that got me was even when he talked about the crucifixion. A lot of people don't understand the archetypical symbologies in just the crucifixion and being between two opinions.
Two opinions, right.
Two opinions. The one that's like, oh, if you're God, let me see you get yourself down from there, and on all these different things. And then there's the one like, if you truly are God, I want to save a place for me in the kingdom, or whatever the words were. You know what I'm saying? It's like you have the duality, and then you have the middle path.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So it's seeing in these, as we say, holy texts or holy writings or sacred writings, it's seeing the different levels of conscious understandings that could be grasped from them. Because somebody that's very, well, this is how it reads and this is how you should be saying it. Well, no, you say that.
Right.
I'm going to speak what I get from it, because isn't it for me as well as it is for you?
Right.
At the level of consciousness that you are at.
And peep this, right? Where did it take place? What was the name of that mountain?
Golgotha. In the skull.
In the skull.
Let's think.
Right.
And nothing that we say, it's funny because, let me look at the camera when I say this. It's funny because people talk about, oh, that's some new age stuff. No, this is ancient stuff.
This is ancient. Right.
That keeps coming back in cycles in different religions and theologies and so on and so forth. It's certain, I can't remember his name. I just was looking at him the other day. Was it Uranus? Certain church bishops were saying things that are resurfacing now, or we say it's resurfacing, but it's been out for centuries.
Right.
It's Christianity's been around before Christ that we know.
And we also can gather from the Bible, right? If we believe it in the way that that most people think that is written, there's nothing new here.
Right.
No.
Nothing.
It says nothing's new under the sun.
Nothing. Right? Nothing is
Play
new.
of forms.
It's just different plays of forms.
It takes a different story, uses a different character, but it's still the same message.
Same message.
Go ahead.
To the one.
Right. And I think that we are in a special epoch, right? Just as far as like, how things look, and what's relevant for a collective consciousness that's in the earth right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I think the message is going to take the form of that consciousness that best suits an awakening.
Right. Whatever that is.
Yeah. For somebody, it might be a nightmare.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
I mean, what we're talking about right now is a nightmare for somebody.
It could be.
Oh man, those brothers has gone off.
They off.
And that's
ain't reading.
All praises.
All praises, my brother.
And
You're
that's
right.
And that's okay.
Yes, because it's part of our development.
Part of our
Yes.
development.
We need it.
Exactly.
We don't need one. We don't need just all positive opinion.
Right, because we will have nothing to gauge development.
Right. Exactly.
And this is what, and see, people take accepting your shadow self as demonic.
Talking to the mic.
But it's more of just being aware with nature that there's light and darkness. And the light, understanding that the light is the source. Once you understand that the light is the source, you don't have a problem saying, oh, that's my shadow over there.
All right. Come on.
I know that's me. That's a reflection of me.
Man.
Yeah.
That's over there.
Right.
And depending on your position with the light depends on how intense the shadow is. Sometimes it's two shadows. Sometimes you cast two shadows depending on your position with artificial and natural light.
Right.
So that's a whole nother concept, artificial light.
Right.
But it's all for the development. So once you become accustomed with the fact that you're going to cast shadow,
Yeah.
you understand that, as my people used to say, I ain't gonna say that. I'll leave it. I'll say it in a nice way. It's like everybody got opinions. I'll say it
Right.
like that.
Yeah,
Oh.
I know what you're saying. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Every man put their pants on one leg at a time. Same way.
If they got legs.
Right. No disrespect to those
Right.
who don't.
Right. Yeah. What's that look, Malak?
Hey, nah, I mean the conversation is good.
I mean,
It's good. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's good because if we take like something we was talking about earlier, like a landmark decision that kind of came and it was entered into the earth or whatever.
Right.
We were talking about affirmative action earlier,
Right.
Oh, okay.
and basically the Supreme Court struck down affirmative action in certain institutions.
This is recent.
Yeah,
Yeah, this was a couple days ago.
Okay.
A few days ago, right?
Oh, I think I saw something about that with the was it entering the armed service can be was it citizenship or nationality can be looked at in determining entering the armed services? I seen something on
Well,
that.
it
But I didn't know it was pertaining to in the big picture. But
so at first, like people couldn't use certain demographics as a means to say you cannot,
right.
right? Few days ago, now that's overturned. Now
It's gone.
that it's okay to do that now.
Okay.
Right.
Right. And there's a lot, that's tied around that decision for people. But as we kind of talked about it and started unpacking it, it's like, okay, well, what's the relevancy of that decision, right? And how does it coincide in some form of a spiritual awakening for people? You know what I mean? Because anytime anything happens at that level, to that
Right.
degree, right? There's more to unpack than just the decision.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's gonna. I think that it's gonna engineer two distinct thought forms. Somebody must be here. And we could probably talk about that later, right? But the bottom line is that you have a certain sphere of awareness, right, that's going to motivate a certain type of thinking.
Right.
It's going to initiate, or it's going to be a catalyst based on wherever you are in your journey,
Right.
Oh,
Like
okay.
you said, initiation.
and it's
Right.
path of an initiate.
It's been happening. Yeah, it's been happening forever.
It's going to
You can go-
continue.
Right. Somebody said something today. Let's take it back to 2001 with the towers.
The who?
With the towers coming down.
Oh,
Towers.
Twin Towers. Got
Right.
it.
When towers coming down.
Right. Initiation.
That changed a lot.
They changed the world.
That
Exactly.
changed the world.
Changed
Yes.
the world.
Yeah, consciousness shifted
Exactly.
big time.
And then we can go on to
COVID. It changed, shift the consciousness of the world.
Right. And then there's a lot of sprinklings in between.
in between, right.
between there. Because it's going to trickle down. Those were things that were more, let's say, national.
Yeah,
COVID was international. But in between there, we have our own personal things that switches our ways of thinking. Mine was genealogy. Everybody's looking for who they are. Right now, if you find out exactly who you are as a people, trust me, it will change your thinking immediately.
Immediate.
You start to question everything. Like, how I've been doing for the last 20 years.
Right.
And then you might change it just to fall right back to where you were before you found out.
and that's kind of what I'm echoing with, what we found out a few days ago.
Right.
Right. These elements that if you lean on them in the material sense, in terms of like what that can provide for you materially,
Right.
as you being somebody who's very much so affixed to an earthly expression.
See that and react in that manner.
I mean, I agree.
You know, the mundane are gonna react in a whole different way. Let's take like storming the Capitol.
Yeah.
Right.
That was a physical act that had a spiritual effect on certain people.
Exactly.
But I tell you what's interesting though, right? The generation that's coming behind us, they have no concern
None.
Yeah.
about any of that.
Any
Well,
of
and I would say because their consciousness level is different. They kind of, the ones now, they coming into play. They understand what they're here for. Now, not saying that they run through the path of that's what I'm going to do, but they're here to think a little different than people storming the Capitol. You know what I'm saying? So when you doing things like that holds some kind of a attachment to this thing, which going to cause suffering, or you to suffer, and stop your growth from ascending to that Christ.
It's like attachment to outcomes.
right.
Right.
For some.
For
some.
some.
And what I mean by that is, okay, I'm gonna be careful here.
Don't be careful. Go ahead.
No. We gotta be careful here with
Political
with this one. Okay. There were some who were involved in storming the Capitol.
Right.
There were some who were at home who would have stormed the Capitol
Come on.
if they were there.
Right.
Then there's a whole nother group who has been talking about doing shit like that for years. But when it came down to it and they saw the outcome, they ain't about shit. They
Cut 'em off
never. It's a talking point. It gets a rise out of a certain group of people who shake their fists at certain principles, but when it really came down to it, they ain't storming nothing.
Right.
I don't care if they got 1 million motherfuckers in Washington. They not storming anything. They'll ask those 1 million to bring $1. But when it comes to getting what they want and how they want it and demanding it, they weren't going to resort to those type of means to get it.
Right.
So, for me personally, that changed the way I thought physically and spiritually about certain groups, certain situations, what people say they'll do, what people present. You know, because like I said, there's been groups that been, we'll do this and we'll do that, and we got the right to bear arms, and they march around with their rifles, and they shoot some of their own members by mistake. You know what I'm saying? It's all types of shenanigans, as we say, that go on.
Right.
But when it came down to that action, it was a total different group of people who stormed the Capitol that we never thought
Right.
would have actually resulted to those actions. So that taught me something.
Right.
You know, it taught me a lot. I hope I was politically correct in saying that.
That everybody ain't about their business.
Or
you
everybody is about just business. you know what I'm saying? Oh boy.
I mean, it's each identifier is unique to a particular space of awareness.
Right.
Right.
And I think that spiritually is engineered that way.
Yes.
It just so happens that they play out in these events that are catalysts for suffering for some, liberation for others,
Right.
revolting for others,
Yep.
right? And then, you know, you might have a few that understand, like, this is all just one thing.
Right.
And in a grander scene of what's the word I want to use? Of development.
Yes. Have
Yeah.
you looked at the chat?
Yes, I've seen.
Oh, okay. It's interesting. I didn't mean to throw you off. I was just looking at the chat.
Yeah, I did see it.
It's all good. We love you too. It's all good, you know.
Y'all
Get
go.
well,
You know,
sis.
it's you know, it's well, we're bringing it back to your ascension.
Oh,
your
yeah.
ascension to a certain thing. You have to let things go.
Definitely.
As you talked about storming the cat. Some stuff you just gotta let go, bro.
Right.
You've been thinking about this since you've been probably about 10 years old. Storming the Capitol.
I mean, I personally never thought about that.
You know, some of these people have.
Oh,
You know what I'm saying? But sometimes you just gotta, you just gotta let stuff go
look at his face.
because you too attached to it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
You know, once you become attached to certain things that really mean something to you, you really take interest in.
Suffering.
Here come suffering is right at the back door and you're creating it.
Well, if it's you know, it kind of, you start seeing people keep saying the same stuff over and over again, and they may not be aware of it, but it's something that's going on that, as you said, they haven't let go.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it kind of, if that's not checked, it could become a whole nother beast.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah, but like we've been saying, it's a part of that journey. It's a state of consciousness,
Right.
and it really shows. It says a lot. And I'm not even trying to get into whether it was orchestrated, whether if it was whatever. The end result is this is what happened, and it was some people that put that into play for whatever reason, and it's like,
Right.
Right. It was orchestrated
Right.
by higher beings, higher consciousness.
Right.
Oh, you know
But,
what? We did
you
talk
know,
about
nope.
like the influence of those
We
beings,
get in there.
shadow beings on
Right.
right,
other beings,
thought forms.
Got it, yeah, we
got
talked
it,
about
got it.
that.
I got
Right.
it.
That's my point.
They got to feed off that energy.
I know it's perplexing you a little bit over there, brother.
Just,
It's development.
I get it.
Yeah, that's what
It's-
it
It develops someone. It's for somebody.
It's for somebody.
And if it does, it's kind of like if somebody's saying something like, "Hey, who drank all the who left the swallow water in the fridge?" and you know you didn't do it. Why would you even speak on it? It's not your it's not your concern. So it only concerns the one that,
Ooh.
who's related to leaving that last swallow of water. So maybe they might have something to go on about it or whatever the case may be. But so I get it. It's for somebody.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I mean that's been the detailed narrative of the discussion.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? This path of the Christ being, these different reflections that you see in everything through different relationships. Go ahead, don't lose a thought.
It's a thought of it becomes it not from a braggadocious or a perception of higher or lower than anybody else, but it actually puts you in a state of power. You become a little bit more empowered of controlling your destiny once you start on that path and you expand to a certain level, because you start you becoming aware of the things that you could control,
Right.
and an awareness of the things you can't control. So it's kind of like the thing I always say is I care, but I'm not concerned.
Right.
Now that might offend someone,
Oh, it
or they
will.
may vie for me getting in that state of mind. But it's really, the reality is like, unless I'm willing to go do something about it or make a change or implement some type of act, because that would be what the situation moves me to do.
Right.
And then it may move me to say, dang, they did that.
Yeah.
Okay, what can I do about it? I could talk about it.
Right.
I could pray about it. I could go on about my day. I could do all of that and go about my day.
Exactly.
You become empowered to say, like, listen, I see this, I hear this. Give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar. They got laws. people that's in place to punish, so litigate, whatever the case may be, it's gonna do what it's gonna do while I'm gonna be doing what I'm doing over here.
Right.
So
I didn't have them. I explain certain things to somebody. They look at me and tell me, "Oh, you just don't care," and I say, "I don't," and walk on. Because I'm not gonna suffer because you got something going on. I'm not
Right.
about to do that.
Right.
I'm just telling you what it is. I'm trying to help you conquer your suffering.
Right.
No, I don't care.
Right.
I'm just listening to you.
Right. But there's
Help trying to get you to understand certain
Right.
things, but if you're gonna tell me I don't care, and I just tell you, no, I don't care.
right.
I
But
think. Oh, go ahead,
easy.
Mike. Go ahead, Mike.
There's, for me personally, there's always ripples.
Come on.
Every situation casts
Just talked about it.
casts ripples.
Right.
So this situation that I'm speaking of, as I watched it unfold, I didn't care. I was kind of amused. But what I like to do is, what do I personally get out
Right.
of this situation? Why is this happening and I'm seeing it? What is the message for me? And what I said earlier was, the message for me was, the groups that keep hollering that they're about this type behavior ain't.
Right.
So
Come on.
that's where I need not be wasting my time
Exactly.
if that's not where I'm going with the situation. 'Cause like I said, it's a lot of wolf tickets being sold out here, and it's a lot of all young brothers joining these organizations because they think people is bout it.
Right.
And then when you see what group actually made a move, I'm like, well, damn. I never would have expected that to be the group to make that type of move. Why? Because they ain't been hollering that they'll make that type of move. They just did.
They just did it.
That's what I got from the situation. Now, the situation itself, come on, man. Y'all know me. We could get deep, like we said, like he said. Was it orchestrated? Was it, something that the whole thing could be a facade? I'm not even gonna go that deep in. It was more of, why am I seeing this? What do I learn from this?
And if I can probably give one example, the death of one thing is the birth of something else.
Right,
Right. So
right,
in another space of awareness, I think that when we see these events and categorize them as such, we probably should extract from it the meaning and the mission of death in an earthly evolution.
yes,
So to unpack these different items, right? You got to be in tune. You got to be tuned in another frequency.
yes,
Which I would venture to say that it probably shouldn't be solely rooted in materialism. Otherwise, you're destined to repeat that again.
right,
Go ahead.
It's kind of like, to throw the paradigm of thinking. It's like you're born into death and you die into life.
Yeah.
It's just a different perception.
Right.
You know what I mean? The minute you're born, it's like a timer,
Right.
or as we call it, born. So
If that's what they want to call it.
if that's what they want to call it, well, that's yeah.
Me, I've never been born, and I will never taste death.
Look at him.
I am infinite and eternal. I shine forth as the sunbeam to the sun. I'm the exact love of the Father, and I stand before you to love you. That's it.
Brother, you're the
I would
devil
take
the
it.
Bible talks about.
You're right. Hello. And you know what I would say? You're right, my brother. You're right. You're absolutely right.
right,
So,
right.
I mean,
Oh.
the path of initiation is pretty unique.
Yeah.
It's suffering.
But you know what? It is, but it's not.
No, I mean,
It's suffering, right? If that's where your consciousness is attached.
for the word suffering.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say he wasn't here for the analogy with the line and the positive and negative.
Oh, yeah.
It's like most people they do this, and it's like as consciousness expands, you kind of get to here, and then it's kind of like this.
Yeah.
But to the naked eye, it looks like you're not suffering.
Right.
But you really are going through stuff. It's just to other people that are not on the same conscious level, they are not even aware that you're going through stuff. So I'm just bringing it back to what you're saying. Right.
That's what I was saying about the craze.
Right,
Everybody
right.
was looking at him like, man, that's Jesus right there.
Yeah.
He performed the miracles. He made that crippled person walk and the blind lady see. And the whole time he in the wilderness questioning himself because he's being tempted.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's a sway back and forth, but it's your position along with all of the rest of existence
Yeah.
that depends on your development, that's the so-called suffering or initiation or your hazing. You know what I'm saying? It's like like I said, God never. My mama used to say that God don't use perfect people. Never has.
That's what they. Hey, that's
Right. So
that's
it's
an
a
old
hazing that you go through. So when you see that adulterous woman, we really can't judge, so to speak, if we are people of the light, because we're casting that shadow by being on the opposite end of the spectrum.
Right.
You can look at your mama and say, now that's a virtuous woman. Why? Because she over there twerking. Mama don't twerk. You got something to weigh it against.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But then, if you talk to your father about your mother in her younger days,
He'll tell you something else.
he might cast a shadow. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so it's all about,
Yeah.
That's a good one.
your viewpoint.
That's a good one.
Right,
That's a good
right,
one.
right. It's all about your viewpoint on your position in the light.
Right.
on what
Yes,
you
sir.
see.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So are we saying that Jesus wasn't perfect? What are we saying?
Absolutely.
I'm just gonna say he was.
That he was perfect.
Right.
No, that he was.
was.
Not-
That he was. He existed.
Right.
And then
was.
everybody else is saying what he was or what he wasn't.
Right.
Right.
And just for the people,
Yeah.
Job was perfect.
Yeah.
Or Job.
Right.
Noah was perfect in his generations. So
I'm gonna throw it really off.
Go-
Satan's perfect.
Right.
he's a perfect force.
I'm gonna throw all of y'all off. We all are perfect.
Oh.
Right.
Well,
It's simple.
I am
I am.
the Malak and I am the Shaitan
Right.
Come on.
in the flesh.
Come on.
Right. Higher
Come
than
on.
lower self.
Okay.
Light and shadow.
Come on.
That's what makes it perfect. I get ridiculed sometimes. He's seen it happen. People ask, "How you doing today?" It's like, "I'm perfect." And a friend of ours was like, "She just, that really pisses me off." And I'm like, "What?" She was like, "For you to just say you're perfect, that pisses me off. You mean to tell me you don't have a bad day at all?" And I was like, "I never said that." I said that my day has been perfect.
Right.
Yeah, there's some stuff that didn't go absolutely sublime, didn't go right, but that's what made it a perfect day. I'm here to talk to you about it right now. The
Right.
day is perfect. I'm not gaining anything sitting here shooting down to you. Look, this is due. I got this. I got 2 teenagers that's in school right now. They need extra clothes and that.
Right. Yeah.
What am I gonna gain from that?
Right.
So because I was able to, witness a day what we call a day, sunrise and sunset. My day was perfect. You know what I'm saying?
That's dope.
And it always changes my day. Really, I at the end of the day, or when I go home at night, I'm like,
When you take that last deep breath.
right. I'm not. I didn't have anything that I was dwelling on that was negative. Now, some things came up that I might have to have dealt with, but I'm not sitting around, woe is me, and this, that, and
Plum syndrome.
right. You don't want to stay in your low point. So, you speak to your higher points. You speak to the higher situations.
Right.
I had had a buddy, man, that was talking to about about the I'm not even gonna talk it, but the last big event that happened in our news. And the day before that, he was, man, the hell with them rich people. You know what I'm saying? What am I concerned with the rich people? It was all about how much money these people had.
Right.
The next day, my concern was, homie, people died. His
Right.
response to me was, don't talk that negativity to me.
Oh boy.
You know what I'm saying?
He switched the game up on you.
Right. But see,
It's a consciousness thing.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
But the day before that, it was all about who cares about them people? They was rich.
Right. Right. So
Man, I don't care about their money. I'm thinking about somebody's mama.
Right. So
I
he
saw
was
the-
judging them on their money.
Because
they
that's
riches.
his consciousness. That's his
consciousness.
concern.
Yeah.
I'm
That's interesting.
I'm sitting there thinking, to think about a family member who would pass in that manner, in that way,
Right.
regardless of race, color, creed,
Right.
money, whatever. This is horrifying to me.
Right.
To the point that, I don't want to, it wasn't something I was going to dwell on, but for me to be so arrogant to skip across life and start dealing with finances
Yeah.
once life was taken. So I'm looking at the phone like, man, tell me something good. Talk positive to me. Like, what? I just did. I told you people passed.
Right.
This ain't no time to be, you know what I'm saying? This is what my concern is about, But like he said, it's wherever your consciousness is.
Right.
Whatever's important to you is going to surface.
Exactly.
So it was a little duality there. It was worth thinking about, It was thought provoking for me to see that put in that manner,
Yeah, I like the saying when it says, "I don't have bad days, I have bad moments," and that's just, for lack of better terms, good, bad. But it's like the whole day. Is the whole day bad?
Right.
From sunrise or the time you open your eyes to the time you go, it's just bad.
Right.
Right. But once you understand the law,
The universal principles.
you will see everything is neutral.
Right.
Always.
It's always neutral. Now we decide
What we're gonna
Which-
put labels on it.
what
Right.
we're gonna do, what we're gonna do, what we're gonna say, what we're gonna put label on, what we're gonna say about that person or not that person.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Or what happened. Once we start doing that and get out of the neutral situation, that's when the suffering or the happiness come in.
Right.
Because somebody might have been happy that them people
Right.
passed on the submarine or whatever.
Right.
You know, they got mad at the dude, the son, because he went to a concert. Yo, the man wanted to go to a concert. So
Right.
what?
He's up
What
to
is
something.
why? Right? Why is it your problem?
Right.
You just interjected yourself out of the neutral zone.
The surrounding society is what I was talking
Exactly.
about. Casting the shadows on what they
Exactly.
think you should be doing.
Right. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Why that man can't? That's how that's how he grieve.
Right.
He might had to go out and get some stuff off his chest and go dance it off or something.
Right.
I don't know.
Right. Or he
But
might-
you don't know either.
How about it's just not your business what he's doing?
Right. Because you done took yourself out of the neutral position
Right.
and you wanted to drive.
Right. When I saw, like I said, it was the TV news was saturated with that. my honest concern, and it wasn't really a concern, it's just that what I can relate with
Right.
is the loss of life. That's
Right.
it. I'm looking at it like these people had families, regardless of how it was so insensitive to me to see the memes, jokes.
Yeah, bro.
They just kept coming, and I'm like, is anybody like seeing that people pass? Now, on the flip side of that, just to show my polarity, my duality, the brother that punched the woman in the face, I didn't feel the same for him.
Right. Yeah, I saw that video.
So I had to question my own self when it came to the loss of life, because he had a mama, sister, family, and the whole nine. So once I get back to thinking, you know, it's a sad situation all around, but I didn't have the same feeling,
Right.
you know. So it's like he said, it's wherever your consciousness is, you know.
Any other thoughts, Malak?
No, man, that's really all I got, brother.
Yeah. Let me bring this book out right here. It's called Emotional Intimacy by Robert Augustus Masters, PhD. Very good book. If you are trapped within suffering, fear, and anything else that you're dealing with, get this book, read this book, do the exercises in this book, and it will help you get to a certain point. If you don't meditate, if you don't, into meditation and stuff like that. But in the book, since he's a doctor, what have you, he recommends meditation. Which is, interesting to me. When you have medical doctors saying, no, when they're saying you try meditation.
Yeah.
Quiet
down.
I mean,
listen.
Listen. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And if you taking the word meditation is med, like medicine, it's good for the soul, good for the body. So, but if you have anything that you're dealing with emotionally, that you're trying to get up out of, read this book and do some exercises in it, and it would, trust me, it will greatly enhance what you understand and what you don't understand about yourself.
Yeah. And if you want to get closer or awaken that Christ within, meditate. Clears all the pathways, the noise, the clutter, and you'll hear that voice, that soft, still voice.
Right.
Yeah.
The problem, the thing is dealing with yourself. That's the hardest thing you're gonna do, is deal with yourself and what's inside you. Because when it comes up, it's gonna come up, and you're gonna have to deal with it.
Can you dig it?
And you're gonna and what I would suggest, don't try to push it away or hide it in the closet. Deal with it right then and there, and love that situation. Because once you love that situation, guess what? That is not gonna come back and knock on your door no more. You're gonna be one with it. And when you're one with something, you become that. You're that. You're the only thing that exists. It's just that simple.
Reabsorb it back into yourself. Yeah. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for watching.
Okay.
Could have been anywhere on this day,
Okay.
but you're here with us.
For sure.
Okay.
When this gets on YouTube, if you feel that we provided anything that's stimulated your mind, touched your heart, hit the like button, as they say, or subscribe, or don't.
Okay.
Fourth principle.
Fourth principle.
Shalom, fam.
Shalom. Namaste.
Shalom.